My father made this film in the early 50s, I think in 1953, but I'm not sure about that. But certainly before the streetcar stopped running in 54, might have been a couple years before he was shooting this film. But I do believe that it has never been shown before in the city of Cleveland. It has been shown a couple other places in the United States by people who are interested in streetcars. But this is not really a film about streetcars. This is a personal film by a person who has loved city life, and it was a way of his connecting with it. But anyway, I thought what I would do is briefly, or maybe not briefly, talk about the circumstances under which the film was made, which revolve around my life and my father's life. So if you're at all interested, I'll give you a little bit of background on that. We were living in Lakeview Terrace Housing Project, which is at the foot of West 25th Street, down into the flats, since I was born in 1947. And we all thought it was a great place to live. My father loved it. We could walk to the library, the West Side Market. We could take the streetcar downtown and wherever we wanted. And even though in some respects it wasn't ideal, for us it was a wonderful place to live at that time. And in the early 50s, my father got together with another friend who lived in Lakeview Terrace, and they bought a they bought a camera, and they decided to make this movie. Now, I don't really know why they decided to make a movie about streetcars. My father had been a fairly successful photographer. He had taken pictures on Scoville Avenue in Cleveland for a number of years, and was pretty well known in this area as a photographer. He won many prizes at the May Show in Cleveland, and he had shows in New York City, Akron Art Museum, and other places. And he had been particularly interested in the black neighborhoods of Cleveland, where he felt that he could get the kinds of photographs that he wanted. A little bit about my father. He was born in Wilmington, North Carolina in 1921, and he was raised in a very middle-class environment, white middle-class Southern environment. His family life wasn't particularly happy. He had a sister quite a bit older. His father was a typical Southerner of his time, meaning sort of racist. And my father, it's interesting I've never really quite understood how my father broke out of that kind of mold, that psychological mold, but he claimed there was a bit of luck involved. But in any case, he became interested as a child, as a young person, in listening to the radio, and he discovered jazz on the radio. And he discovered the music of black musicians, the blues and jazz. The early jazz of New Orleans was particularly his favorite. Bunk Johnson was his hero. And if any of you know the music of that period. But anyway, he became interested in the life of black Americans, and he felt that what was missing in his life could possibly be found in their life. Also, in his teenage years, he discovered literature. He picked up a copy of Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway that was in his cousin's library, and he got interested in things that were not particularly interesting to the rest of the members of his family. In any case, as a teenager, they moved to Cleveland, and Cleveland Heights, in fact, and my father went to Cleveland Heights High School. And at the age of 17, he saw the movie Spanish Earth, which was a documentary film about the Spanish Civil War, directed by Joris Ivens. And I'm not quite sure where he saw that movie in the city of Cleveland at that time, who would be showing it exactly. But in any case, he did see it, and he thought that maybe no one had, he knew that no one had published Hemingway's text to that movie. So he got in touch with Hemingway's agent and finally published the text of Hemingway's text of that movie, and it's been published in a little book called Spanish Earth. And it created a certain kind of sensation in Cleveland and for people who were Hemingway lovers. But anyway, he did publish that, and afterward he went to Cleveland College. He studied creative writing. He wrote poetry, plays that were produced on the campus, and he was also involved in the music scene in Cleveland. Some of the musicians he knew, among them Montana Taylor and Cow Cow Davenport, were well-known blues pianists in Cleveland, and he began writing jazz criticism for the Cleveland Press and Downbeat magazine. At that same time, he went into an art gallery called the 1030 Gallery on Euclid Avenue and met my mother, who was running with her sister this art gallery. And shortly thereafter, they got married and had a child, and my father decided to write his novel. So they went to Mexico to do that, and my father actually did write a novel in 6 months. But my mother was not satisfied with life in Mexico, and she was pregnant with me. And so they came back to this country where I was born in 1947. And as I said, we began living in Lakeview Terrace housing project. And my father bought his camera just before he went to Mexico. And he started taking pictures of the Mexican sort of peasantry in Mexico. And among the images of his very first rolls of film were some that were one that was later shown at the Family of Man show, a famous show in New York City at the Museum of Modern Art, which was curated by Edward Steichen. And so he had his entree into the world of photography. He began taking pictures on Scoville Avenue, and he won these prizes at the May Show. He entered other contests, American Photography, Life Magazine, and whatnot. He won other prizes. He had shows at museums and art galleries. And so he was a pretty, in his own terms, I guess he would have considered himself a fairly successful photographer.